Have you ever felt like you're quietly disappearing from yourself? Like you're fading away, not into darkness, but into something you can't quite name? Have you caught yourself staring at something you once loved? Something that once filled you with light, and now it feels like just another object, empty, distant, meaningless. And what if that strange feeling, instead of being a collapse, was the beginning of your awakening? When you stare long enough into an abyss, the abyss also stares back into you. But what if that abyss wasn't the end, but the doorway? We live in an age that worships productivity, performance, and perfectly rehearsed smiles on social media. Being happy has become an obligation. And in this theater, where everyone pretends to have it all figured out, those who start to lose interest in everything are quickly labeled as broken, unstable, or lost. But what if that disinterest isn't a flaw, but a message, a symptom of transformation? Carl Jung, with his quiet and profound wisdom, gave us a path to understand the deepest processes of the soul. He knew that before rebirth, one must walk through the desert. That's what this is about. This message isn't for everyone. It's for those who are wandering through the dark night of the soul, those who no longer find meaning in what once felt essential, those who can't explain it, but feel that something inside is dying while something new tries to be born. You're about to cross an invisible frontier between who you were and who you are becoming. And no, it's not comfortable, but it's real. This is an intimate conversation, like a whisper at dawn, a space between sanity and madness, where philosophy meets silence and self-awareness dances with the unknown. So take a deep breath, let go of control, and walk with me. What you're about to feel might change everything. You don't really know when it started. One day, you just notice that you're different. The places that once excited you now seem pale. The songs that once pierced your soul now just play and fade away. The conversations that used to light you up now feel mechanical, shallow, like reading a script you've memorized but no longer believe in. And then comes that question, the one you don't dare to say out loud but can't silence inside. What's happening to me? On the surface, it seems like you're losing everything. Your enthusiasm, your patience, your joy. But deep down, in a silent place you can't quite name, something is trying to emerge. It's a new rhythm, a new frequency, like your soul is tuning into another station, but you're still trapped in the static of transition. It feels strange. You feel empty, but not exactly sad. Disconnected, but not apathetic. Just distant from everything that once defined who you were. And this is where most people panic, thinking they're losing their sanity. But something deeper is unfolding. You're being called out of autopilot. Your lack of interest is your soul's cry for truth. Jung spoke of the dark night of the soul as part of individuation, the journey back to your true self. He knew that the path rarely begins with light. It almost always begins with silence, confusion, and emptiness. Because before we can discover who we are, we must first lose who we pretended to be. Imagine a dark, cluttered room, filled with old furniture, memories piled high, and objects that once mattered. You step inside and realize there's no space to move. Slowly, without knowing exactly why, you start removing things, one by one. And the more space you create, the clearer it becomes that most of those things never really belonged there in the first place. That's what's happening within your psyche. What you feel as emptiness is a sacred clearing. Your consciousness is cleansing itself, removing, piece by piece, everything that no longer resonates with your new vibration. That emptiness is not destruction, it's preparation. And this is the first sign. You begin to lose interest in what no longer speaks to the person you're becoming. But here lies the trap. We live in a world that idolizes consistency. Those who change too much are labeled unstable. Those without clear goals are seen as lost. And anyone who says, "I don't know what I want anymore," is quickly told they're in crisis. But is every crisis really an illness? Or could some crises be sacred rites of passage? Maybe right now, you're crossing an invisible threshold, leaving behind who you were without yet having a name for what's being born. And that's okay. It's okay not to have answers. It's okay not to know what to do. Sometimes wisdom lies precisely in not interfering, in allowing the soul to reorganize itself in silence. Psychoanalysis teaches that the unconscious knows far more than the ego can ever understand. And when the unconscious begins to pull the strings, the ego panics. It feels as though it's losing control. But maybe that's exactly what you need to stop controlling, to stop pretending that you still love what's suffocating you, to stop forcing yourself to fit into a skin that no longer feels like yours. Yes, it's frightening, because in all of this, there's a silent grief. You're saying goodbye to a version of yourself, to an identity, to dreams you no longer desire. But grief is sacred. It prepares the soil for the new. Clarice Lispector once wrote, "Getting lost is also a way." And maybe right now, you're not lost at all. Maybe you're simply putting away old maps so that a new one can draw itself, slowly, truthfully, in its own time. So the next time you catch yourself saying, "Nothing interests me anymore," remember, maybe it's not a problem. Maybe it's your first sign of rebirth. You're not breaking, you're being dismantled, so you can rebuild yourself with pieces that this time truly belong to you. But before we go further, there's something more dangerous than failure: stagnation. That silent state of always being busy, yet never at peace, of constantly searching, but never really knowing what you're searching for. It happens because so many people try to change the external world without rebuilding the mental foundation that sustains everything. That's where real transformation begins, not with doing more, not with pretending to be fine, but with allowing the old structures within you to fall apart. Because sometimes falling apart is the only way the truth can finally enter. There is a lesser-known process that teaches precisely this: how to align your thoughts, decisions, and actions with a clear purpose and a more stable mind. This approach, rooted in philosophy and behavioral science, has helped ordinary people move from mental chaos to a life of presence, autonomy, and direction. Even if you can't name it yet, something inside you is quietly drifting away, like old attachments slipping from your fingers one by one, even without your consent. You try to hold on. You try to convince yourself that you still love what's fading, that you are still that same person, but something within you has already left. And this is where detachment begins, not as a rational choice, but as a silent movement of the soul, a process that doesn't ask for your permission. It simply happens. You stand there, stunned, watching yourself stop being who you were, without knowing exactly who you're becoming. Jung once said that the life not lived within becomes destiny. And perhaps that's why, right now, everything that was too external begins to lose power. You no longer care for the same conversations. You don't feel drawn to the same places. The connections that once felt vital now echo as hollow and repetitive. And you ask yourself, have I changed too much? Or has the world around me become too small? The truth is both. Because when you begin to change internally, the world you built from your former self starts to crumble. Not because it was false, but because it was temporary, like a wooden house built to shelter a body in transition. Now your spirit demands deeper foundations. Your soul seeks a stronger home. And in that process, you must let go. Let go of ideas that defined you for years, dreams that once felt promising, people who made sense in a chapter where you still fit within yourself. Letting go hurts. Not because it was wrong to hold on, but because it's hard to accept that something was meaningful and yet no longer has a place. It's common to resist at this stage, to try to revive relationships, reignite passions, return to goals that no longer move you. But then you realize it all feels artificial. You try to feel excited, but your soul no longer follows. And there is a deep sadness in this, because you begin to understand that detachment is an act of courage. It is a conscious death. Buddhist philosophy teaches that suffering is born from attachment. And paradoxically, it's not detachment that hurts. It's our resistance to it. The more we try to cling to what's already leaving, the more exhausted we become. It's like trying to hold water with closed fists. It always slips away. But when we open our hands, perhaps something new will land there. And here lies the hardest part. Detachment is not forgetting, not abandoning, not despising. It's honoring what once was and allowing it to continue its path. It's like watching a ship sail away on the horizon, knowing its journey with you has ended. And that's okay. Some companions are bridges, not destinations. This detachment also happens within. You start noticing that there are parts of yourself that no longer make sense. The mask you built to please, to belong, to survive, begins to fall. And behind it, there's a face you might not yet recognize. But it's real, and it's tired of hiding. That stage, no matter how painful, is sacred. Because in that devastated inner ground, freedom is born. The freedom to stop forcing connections, to stop pretending to like what you don't, to stop explaining your transformation to anyone. You owe no loyalty to your past self. That version brought you here, but it can't come with you any further. Jung believed the soul always knows where it's going, even when the ego gets lost. And maybe now, your soul is trying to guide you toward a more authentic place. But to do that, it needs you to release everything that no longer vibrates at your frequency. And yes, you will feel lonely, because detachment is not only spiritual, it's social. When you change, distance appears. Some people will leave, others will accuse you of changing too much, and you'll have to endure being misunderstood. But in the silence of that separation, a new clarity begins to rise. You're not losing yourself. You're aligning with yourself. It takes great maturity to understand that letting go is also an act of love. Love for yourself, love for truth, love for the freedom that comes from being who you truly are, even if it costs you old companions and ancient dreams. Detachment is simply making space for the new to arrive. And the new only comes when the old no longer occupies the space. So if you feel like you're drifting away from everything, maybe it's because you're finally coming back to yourself. There is a kind of silence that frightens, a deep inner silence that isn't the absence of sound, but the absence of desire. You wake up, but you feel no enthusiasm. The days repeat, like blank pages, and motivation fades like a distant memory. And inevitably, the question arises, am I depressed? It's a fair question, but it doesn't always have the answer you expect. We live in a world eager to diagnose. Every emotional fluctuation comes with a label, a prescription, a plan. But sometimes what looks like an emotional breakdown is actually the breakdown of the false self. That's why it feels like everything is collapsing. Because it is. Not in a pathological sense, but in a spiritual one. What you are experiencing may not be depression, but awakening. Yes, awakening can look like sadness. It can feel like exhaustion. It can be confused with emptiness. But deep down, there's a subtle, profound difference. Awakening moves. Even in silence, there is a pull, a whisper guiding you, not outward, but inward. Depression paralyzes, it strangles, it extinguishes life. Awakening, on the other hand, creates a quiet restlessness, a discomfort that isn't emptiness, but space. Space where something new is taking shape. That's where the difference lies. Carl Jung once said that within the depths of our unconscious lies the seed of transformation, born from the very chaos we try to escape. What you call confusion is not destruction, but the sacred disorder that precedes rebirth. When the old self begins to crumble, the psyche prepares to reveal something greater, a new order that rises from the ashes of what was. You are no longer following the script written by others. You are remembering who you truly are beneath the layers of conditioning. And though that awakening feels like tearing through darkness, it is the necessary pain of liberation, the soul's way of giving birth to its own light. It's not easy to admit that the dreams that motivated you for years were projections of others, that the relationships you maintained were survival agreements, not real bonds, that the ambitions driving you were based on fear, not truth. Seeing all that is devastating, but it's also necessary. This is where many people get lost. They think they're in crisis, losing control. But it's not a mental collapse. It's the collapse of illusion. And when illusions fall, truth appears naked, raw, and sometimes painful. You start realizing that what you once called stability was actually a silent pact with mediocrity, that your previous life, although comfortable, was too small for your soul. And then your body responds, disinterest appears, energy fades, because your entire system is being reconfigured. It's like a tree in winter. On the outside, it seems lifeless, but inside, everything is transforming. The roots grow deeper, the sap finds new paths, and when spring arrives, life blooms again. Only this time, more authentic, more grounded, more real. That's what awakening is, a winter of the soul. And what makes it even more difficult is that almost no one talks about it. You look around and see people who seem happy, productive, full of energy, and that contrast makes you doubt yourself even more. But here's the truth. Many of those people are simply performing. They're holding up masks, playing roles, and some of them secretly envy your courage to step into the darkness. Because yes, it takes courage to face the void, to look inward without running away, to question everything that once felt certain, and to let go of the familiar in the name of what's real. Most people prefer distraction. You chose awakening. Carl Jung believed that neurosis is often a substitute for the genuine pain of transformation. In other words, when we ignore the call of the soul, the body and mind create symptoms, not because we are broken, but because we are resisting growth. You're not sick for feeling tired of the world. You're simply too awake to keep pretending. And when awareness comes, It's uncomfortable. Awakening isolates you because you start to perceive things others don't. You lose tolerance for superficiality. You prefer silence over meaningless talk, solitude over noise, not out of loneliness, but out of integrity. And people don't understand that, because the world has been programmed to live on the surface. But you are diving deep. And in the depth of that dive, you find something that can't be bought, taught, or borrowed from anyone else. You find your essence. So if you feel like you've lost interest in everything, breathe. Don't run. Don't rush to fix yourself. Don't try to fill the emptiness. Move through it. Because on the other side of this void, you won't find your old self. You'll discover something that has never been allowed to be born before. And maybe that unreleased version of you is exactly what the world needs. There's a point on the journey where the emptiness stops feeling like an enemy and begins to reveal itself as an invitation. Have you felt it? That almost imperceptible moment when the absence stops hurting and starts embracing you. When the silence that once felt like a desert becomes a womb. Fertile ground, clean soil. It's in that moment that something begins to be born inside you. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or grand revelations. It comes as a whisper, a soft breath that nudges you towards something new, even if you don't understand it yet. A quiet curiosity, a subtle pull toward paths you've never walked before. You don't know where it comes from. You just feel it. Maybe it's a sudden interest in reading something new, or the urge to walk barefoot on grass, or a discomfort in conversations that once felt normal. Whatever it is, know this: it's not random. It's life pulsing from a truer place within you. Jung said that what we deny dominates us, but what we accept transforms us. And when you stop fighting the emptiness, something magical happens. The new begins to find you. That's what the void does. It prepares the ground. What once felt like absence was simply space being cleared for what truly matters. It's like trying to plant a tree in a pot full of stones. First, you must empty it, then nourish it. Only then can the seed grow. And that's what's happening inside you right now. You are becoming someone who no longer tolerates the artificial, who can no longer live just to please or prove or perform. You are beginning to seek the essential, even if you don't yet know how to name it. Maybe, for the first time in your life, you're truly learning to listen to yourself. The world will still try to rush you. People will still ask, "Why are you so quiet, so distant, so different?" And you might smile softly and say, "I'm listening to something new, and it's real." That something is your soul rearranging itself, your values taking root, your spirit asking for freedom. Not to do more, but to be more. More authentic, more present, more whole. This is the most silent and revolutionary birth of all. The birth of a new consciousness. And make no mistake, it takes courage. Courage to say no to your old selves. Courage to endure the discomfort of not yet knowing who you're becoming. Courage to remain in silence while everything around you screams for distraction. But there's beauty in this too, because each day, something new reveals itself within you. A subtle gesture, an unexpected clarity, a calm desire to follow a path that makes no sense to anyone but you. You're not falling behind, you're being called forward. And that call, though quiet, is impossible to ignore, because it speaks of belonging, not to a group, not to an ideology, not to an external identity, but to yourself. You are coming home. And perhaps right now, the void no longer feels terrifying. It feels sacred. Maybe it's a reminder that you're still alive, that something deep within you is finally finding the space to bloom. So don't rush to fill it. Breathe into it, because something new, something profoundly yours, is about to be born. And if you've made it this far, perhaps you've already realized that what once felt like an ending was in truth the quiet beginning of something extraordinary. Losing interest can feel terrifying, I know. But what if it's the most honest way your soul has found to say, I don't want to survive anymore. I want to truly live. Don't rush this process. Honor the emptiness. It's sacred. Remember, you're not falling apart. You're blossoming from within. I remember a particular night, one I'll never forget. Maybe you've lived something similar. It was late. Everything around me was silent, except for my mind that kept circling back to questions I couldn't answer anymore. Why doesn't anything excite me like before? Did I lose something along the way? Am I becoming invisible, even to myself? That night, I didn't want advice. I didn't want someone to fix me. I just wanted to hear that what I was feeling made sense, that the emptiness wasn't weakness, but preparation. If this video has reached that quiet place within you, then I know it has fulfilled its purpose. Because this channel isn't a stage, it's a refuge, a sanctuary for those who are tired of pretending to be strong and ready to discover the power that lies in being real. If you felt that this message found you at the right moment, leave a comment below. Tell me, even if it's just in one sentence, what are you allowing to die, and what do you wish to see born? And if you haven't subscribed yet, maybe this is the time. Not out of obligation, but because perhaps this is the only space where your transformation won't be seen as madness, but as courage. Like, comment, subscribe, or simply stay in silence and feel. Everything is okay. And if you're feeling the call to go deeper, the videos appearing on your screen right now aren't there by accident. One of them might reveal something you don't yet know, but that your soul already recognizes. Go, but go slowly. Something within you is blooming. And flowers, they never rush. There comes a moment in every person's life when, without warning, something inside breaks. It's not sadness, it's not anger, it's something deeper. It feels as if the soul itself grows tired of carrying the weight of other people's expectations, of holding on to relationships that only drain, of trying to fit into spaces that no longer belong. It is in that moment that something profound happens. Something Carl Jung described as the beginning of the true process of individuation. The breaking point where the mask falls and the authentic self begins to emerge. But what's curious is that this moment doesn't come with great announcements. There is no sign in the sky, no mark on the calendar that says, today is the day you will set yourself free. It doesn't arrive when you expect it, but rather when you need it the most. It comes after countless nights spent trying to convince yourself that things will get better, that maybe if you change, if you try harder, if you ignore that heavy feeling in your chest that screams something isn't right, then everything will finally fall into place. But it never does. It never fits. And then, in the middle of that emotional exhaustion, the decision happens. The decision to say, no more. For Jung, this moment is a call from the unconscious. It is not a whim, nor a simple emotional reaction. It is a deep message from the psyche, a silent scream that has been waiting for years to be heard. It is the beginning of a journey with no return, because once you decide to let go of what no longer belongs to you, once you dare to walk towards your authenticity, there is no turning back. The person you once were begins to fade, and in their place, someone new emerges, someone stronger, more conscious, more you. What many don't understand is that saying no more is not an act of rebellion, but an act of self-love. It is not an ending, it is a beginning. But why is it so difficult? Why, even when we know something is harming us, do we struggle to let go? Jung explained it in a way so clear that it hurts to accept, because we have built our identity around what makes us suffer. Maybe you haven't noticed, but for years you have told yourself the same story. You have justified your pain with phrases like, "That's just how things are. I can't do anything to change it. Maybe I deserve this. What if I end up alone?" Your unconscious has accepted these ideas as absolute truths, and in doing so, they have shaped your reality. You have stayed in relationships that don't add value, in jobs that kill your spirit, in dynamics that only exhaust you. And the worst part? A part of you has come to believe that this is normal, that this is just how life is. But it's not. Jung taught us that the soul is always seeking its own evolution, and that evolution requires shedding what no longer resonates with our authentic self. However, to do so, we must go through a painful but transformative process: the confrontation with the shadow. The shadow is everything you have repressed, the parts of yourself you were taught to hide, the desires, thoughts, and emotions you deemed unacceptable. But the shadow does not disappear just because you ignore it. On the contrary, it manifests in your life in subtle but constant ways, in the patterns you repeat, in the relationships that hurt you, in the anxiety you cannot explain. And here lies the crucial point. When you say no more, you are facing your shadow head-on. You are challenging the belief system that has kept you trapped. In a way, you are dying in order to be reborn. That is why it hurts. That is why it is so difficult. Because you are not just letting go of a person, a job, or a situation. You are letting go of a version of yourself. A version that has been with you for years, that has been your refuge, your excuse, your comfort zone. But it no longer serves you. It is no longer you. When you decide to let go, the unconscious reacts. At first, you will feel fear. You will doubt yourself. You will question whether you made the right decision. And it is at this point that many people retreat. But this is where you must remember something fundamental. Fear is not a sign that you are making a mistake. It is a sign that you are changing. The unconscious does not want you to change. Its function is to keep you in the known, the predictable. But the soul has a different plan. And this is where the real internal battle begins. The battle between the comfort of the old and the uncertainty of the new. But if you hold on, if you push through the initial chaos without looking back, something incredible happens. You begin to reclaim your energy. Jung described this as a kind of psychic rebirth. For years, your energy has been scattered, trapped in dynamics that did not allow you to grow. Every time you tolerated a situation you didn't want, you gave away a piece of your vitality. Every time you suppressed an emotion out of fear of rejection, you distanced yourself further from your essence. But when you make the decision to let go, all that energy returns to you. It is an almost magical process. What once seemed impossible suddenly becomes clear. What once hurt suddenly doesn't matter as much. And what you once thought you needed suddenly loses its meaning. But there is something else, something no one tells you, something you only discover when you go through this process. The self-love that emerges after saying no more is incomparable to any other form of love. It is a love that does not depend on external validation, that does not need approval. It is a love that is born from within, from the certainty that you are enough just as you are. And when you discover that, when you experience that level of love for yourself, your life changes forever. You stop looking outside for what has always been inside. You stop settling for crumbs because you finally understand your true worth. You stop waiting for someone else to save you because you realize that you have always had the power to save yourself. And there, at that point, is where everything begins to align. Not because the universe is rewarding you for making the right decision, but because, at last, you are in tune with what was always meant to be yours. Relationships change, paths open, opportunities appear. Not because you're doing something different, but because for the first time, you are truly being yourself. But this process doesn't end here. Because once you discover self-love, there is something else you must do, something that will determine the course of your entire life. When you begin to experience the self-love that emerges after saying, "No more," something in your perception of the world shifts. You used to justify toxic behaviors, downplay red flags, and tolerate what deep down you knew wasn't right. But now, with a new awareness of yourself, you can no longer ignore what once went unnoticed. It's as if you've woken up from a long sleep, and for the first time, you see reality without filters. What once seemed normal now feels unbearable. The excuses you used to tell yourself no longer make sense. And this is where one of the deepest transformations takes place. You start seeing people for who they really are, not for who you wish they were. For years, you convinced yourself that if you tried hard enough, if you were patient enough, if you gave enough, you could change someone. You could make them see your worth. You could be so good, so understanding, so loyal that eventually you would receive the love and respect you deserved. But now, you understand a fundamental truth. That was never your responsibility. No matter how much love you give, you cannot fill the void in someone who refuses to fill it themselves. Carl Jung explained that when a person has not integrated their shadow, the hidden parts of themselves they refuse to face, they project their internal conflicts onto others. This is why, in so many relationships, the same dynamics repeat over and over again. A person who hasn't confronted their own darkness will unconsciously seek someone who serves as a mirror, someone onto whom they can project their chaos. And if in the past you were that person, if you allowed someone to unload their wounds onto you without taking responsibility for them, it was because you hadn't yet realized something essential. You were never there to heal them. You were there to learn how to heal yourself. But when you say, "No more," when you refuse to continue in that cycle, something unexpected happens. The people who once controlled you with guilt, manipulation, or empty promises begin to reveal their true selves. Maybe they react with anger. Maybe they try to make you feel like you are the one who is failing. Maybe they tell you that you've changed. And the truth is, they're right. You have changed. You are no longer the person who tolerated the intolerable. You are no longer the person who stayed silent out of fear of losing love. Self-love is not a fleeting emotion. It is an internal foundation that, once built, becomes the base upon which you construct your entire life. But to solidify this love, you must face the hardest test of all, solitude. Because when you decide to let go of what no longer serves you, an emptiness is left behind. A space that was once filled with relationships, habits, and beliefs that, though painful, were familiar. And in that emptiness, in that uncertainty, fear appears. The fear that you made the wrong decision. The fear of being alone. the fear that you may never find something better. But this is where you must remember what Jung taught. The unconscious does not seek comfort, it seeks transformation. And transformation always involves a period of chaos before clarity arrives. During this process, it is normal for nostalgia to make you doubt. There will be moments when you miss what you left behind, not because you want it back, but because your mind has not yet adjusted to freedom. But that feeling of loss is only temporary, because deep down, there is one thing you know with absolute certainty. You could never go back to being the person you were before you woke up. And in that exact moment, something extraordinary happens. You start attracting something completely different, not because you are desperately trying to fill the void, but because now you vibrate at a different frequency. Jung said that what we experience in the external world is merely a reflection of our internal world. When you were broken inside, when you did not value yourself, you attracted people and situations that reinforced that belief. But now that you have recognized your worth, now that you understand that self-love is non-negotiable, everything changes. The people you once connected with no longer fit into your life, not because you chose to push them away, but because they no longer resonate with you. Situations that you once tolerated now feel intolerable. And instead of wondering if you are being too demanding, you realize that you are simply setting a new standard. You no longer accept less than what you deserve. Not because you think you are superior, but because you have finally become someone who respects themselves. And this is where many people fail. This is where they turn back. Because transformation is not a linear process. There are moments when you feel like you're making progress, and moments when it seems like you're regressing. But the key is not to let uncertainty pull you back into the past. The key is to trust that everything you are leaving behind was never meant to be permanent. The pain, the fear, the loneliness, they are not signs that you are lost. They are signs that you are growing. So, if today you feel like you are in the middle of the storm, remember this: the version of you that tolerated less, that made excuses, that settled, that version no longer exists. You are not lost. You are becoming. And that is the most powerful transformation of all. Jung believed that the greatest obstacle on the path to self-discovery is the fear of emptiness. And it's true. Emptiness can feel overwhelming, even terrifying. But what no one ever taught us is that this void is sacred. It is the space where transformation begins. If you rush to fill it, if you cling to the familiar just to escape uncertainty, you will never uncover what was truly meant for you. That is why, after deciding to walk away, after freeing yourself from what was holding you back, the most important step is to embrace the void, to sit with it, to explore who you are without all the emotional baggage. Because something powerful happens when you resist the urge to fill the space with the first thing that comes along. Clarity emerges. That clarity that once felt out of reach, that deep realization that you don't need anything external to feel whole. And when you arrive at this understanding, when you finally grasp what it means to truly love yourself, life starts responding to you in ways you never imagined. You are no longer acting from scarcity, but from abundance. You no longer chase love. You radiate it. You no longer beg for attention. You naturally attract it. You no longer settle for the bare minimum, because now you recognize your worth. And that shift, that new version of you, begins to reshape everything around you. The people who enter your life are no longer looking to take advantage of you. They want to share in your energy. The opportunities that once seemed impossible now feel within reach, not because the world has changed, but because you have. And this is where true magic happens. Because when you become someone who genuinely loves themselves, when you fully embody this transformation, you don't just change your own life, you become a guiding light for others. You prove that letting go is possible, that renewal is real, that living in alignment with your truth is the only way forward. But this is just the beginning, because once you awaken to this power within you, there is one final challenge to face: making this transformation permanent. When you step into the self-love that arises from saying no more, you experience a sense of freedom unlike anything before. But this is also when many people are tempted to return to the past, not because they want the pain back, but because the unknown still feels unsettling. Your mind will try to trick you, replaying only the good moments of what you left behind, downplaying the suffering, whispering doubts like, "What if it wasn't that bad? What if I never find something better? What if I overreacted?" But now, you know the truth. You know that every time you excused your pain, you were only extending it. You know that every time you stayed where you weren't valued, you were denying yourself growth. And most importantly, you know that going back is no longer an option. The version of you that tolerated the intolerable no longer exists. Jung taught that every significant experience expands the human psyche. You cannot shrink back into your old self after waking up. Trying to do so would only create more suffering, because deep down, you no longer belong to that outdated version of yourself. And yet, life will test you. Maybe the person you walked away from will reappear. Maybe a familiar situation will return in a different disguise. But this time, you have something you didn't have before: awareness. When you commit to evolving, when self-love becomes your foundation, you develop a new skill: the ability to see the truth without deception. And the truth is simple. Anything that asks you to betray your peace does not deserve a place in your life. Any relationship that requires you to shrink yourself is not love. It is a cage disguised as companionship. This is where many people stumble, because they mistake attachment for love. They believe missing something means they still need it, when in reality, it's just the last traces of an old emotional habit fading away. Missing something does not mean you made the wrong choice. It means your mind is recalibrating. Your subconscious is shedding years of conditioning. The real proof of growth isn't in how much pain you feel after letting go. It's in what you choose to do with the emptiness that follows. If you fill it with the first thing that shows up, with something that only brings temporary comfort, you will find yourself trapped in the same cycles. But if instead you use this space to reconnect with yourself, to dig deeper, to align with your true desires, then you are preparing yourself for something completely new. Life responds to the energy you project. When you are broken, you attracted from a place of fear and need. But now that you have learned to be at peace within yourself, everything shifts. Relationships are no longer built on fear of loneliness, but on genuine connection. You no longer settle for the bare minimum because you no longer feel desperate for love. Now, what you give comes from wholeness, not emptiness, and the difference is profound. The most fascinating part of this journey is that once you stop searching outside for what has always been within you, everything changes. Everything begins to align naturally. Synchronicity, a concept Jung explored in depth, starts to manifest in your life. You no longer feel like you're swimming against the current, because things simply flow. The answers you once searched for in desperation appear at just the right moment. The people who truly resonate with you start entering your life effortlessly. And most importantly, you are no longer afraid. Because when you truly understand your worth, when you have experienced the power of unconditional self-love, you realize that never again will you allow anyone to define you, to mold you, to make you feel inadequate. External validation becomes irrelevant because your internal validation is unshakable. This is the moment when transformation solidifies. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone. You no longer seek the world's acceptance because you have learned to accept yourself. You have integrated your shadow, understood your lessons, and now walk with a certainty you never had before. It's a level of peace that cannot be explained with words, only experienced. And here is where something interesting happens. When you change in this way, some people from your past will try to return. Not because they have changed, but because they sense that they no longer have power over you. Where they once manipulated you, they now see that you are unbreakable. Where they once played with your emotions, they realize they can no longer shake your center. And this confuses them, not because you hate them, not because you seek revenge, but because now they see something in you that was always there, your power. The only difference is that now you recognize it too. Now you know who you are. Now you know what you deserve. And when you reach this point, there is no turning back, because you are no longer interested in proving anything. You no longer need to explain yourself. You no longer feel the urge to make others understand your worth. You simply are. And that is the greatest victory of all. Because when you reach this state of authentic self-love, life stops feeling like a struggle and starts feeling like creation. You are no longer trapped in cycles of suffering. You no longer repeat old wounds. Now, you consciously choose what you allow in your life, because you have understood that everything around you is a reflection of what you believe you deserve. And now, you finally know your worth. That is the true meaning of self-love. It's not about being perfect. It's not about never having moments of doubt. It's about knowing, with every fiber of your being, that you will never again settle for less than what you truly deserve. Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to a choice. Continue living according to the expectations of others, or dare to live the life you truly desire. The moment you fully understand your worth is the moment your life changes forever. It's as if you suddenly wake up from an illusion that kept you trapped in cycles of suffering, stagnant relationships, and a distorted concept of love. And when you realize that never again will you allow anything or anyone to make you doubt your worth, everything around you starts to shift. At first, it might feel strange. You are used to the struggle, to justifying the unjustifiable, to postponing your peace in the name of patience or the hope that things will improve. But now, in this new state of awareness, you can no longer betray yourself. You can no longer ignore the signs. And that makes you different. Not because your essence has changed, but because you have finally reconnected with it. The people who once knew you might say that you are no longer the same. And they are right. You are no longer available for the dynamics you once tolerated. You are no longer the person who justified the lack of reciprocity. You no longer try to fit into places where you are not welcomed, because now you understand that every time you ignored your intuition, you were choosing your own suffering. Carl Jung said that when we repress our truth, the unconscious finds ways to bring it to the surface. It can do this through dreams, physical symptoms, anxiety, or a persistent feeling of emptiness. For years, you ignored these signs, convinced that it was normal to feel that way. But now, you see it clearly. It was never normal to carry that emotional weight. It was never normal to stay where you were not valued. It was never normal to silence your intuition just to avoid making others uncomfortable. The difference now is that you have learned to listen. You have learned to recognize what your soul has been trying to tell you all along. And most importantly, you have learned to trust yourself, because that is the key. Self-love is not an empty concept or just a nice idea. It is trust. Trust that what you feel is valid. Trust that you deserve something better. Trust that you do not need to cling to what no longer nourishes you. When you become someone who respects themselves, life starts reflecting that respect back to you in every aspect. Not because you have become stronger in the traditional sense, but because you no longer settle for less than you deserve. And the most fascinating part, you don't even need to make a great effort for this to happen. It's an energy shift. When you raise your standards, when you no longer tolerate the intolerable, the people who once took advantage of your low self-esteem start to drift away on their own. They can no longer manipulate you. They can no longer use you as a dumping ground for their chaos. And if they try, they quickly realize you are not the same person anymore. This is where some people feel fear, not because they want to return to who they used to be, but because the emptiness left after letting go of toxicity can be intimidating. There will be moments when you question whether you made the right choice, but in those moments, the only thing you need to do is remember a simple yet powerful truth. Self-love doesn't feel like immediate euphoria. It feels like peace. That peace that once seemed unattainable. The peace you used to seek in others and now discover within yourself. A peace that no longer depends on what someone else does or doesn't do, because you now understand that the most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. And that changes everything. Now, at this new level of awareness, the challenges don't disappear. The temptations to go back may still arise, but the difference is that now you can distinguish between what is real and what is merely an illusion of the past. You don't need to justify yourself. You don't need to explain. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth, because you know it, you feel it, you live it. And here is where the real transformation happens. Because when you live from this space, when self-love has become your natural state, something incredible happens. You no longer seek to impress anyone. You no longer look for validation. You are no longer obsessed with being understood, because you realize not everyone is ready for this transformation. Some people will say you've changed too much, that you are no longer the same, and they will be right. But what they fail to understand is that you haven't changed to fit a new mold. You've changed because you've finally broken free from one. When you live with self-love, your energy feels different. It's as if the things that used to affect you no longer have the same impact. You no longer react to manipulation. You no longer get dragged down by guilt. You no longer allow someone who doesn't know what they want to make you doubt what you do want. And that clarity, that certainty, is what finally gives you the power that was always within you. Life becomes simpler, not because challenges disappear, but because now you know which battles are worth fighting and which ones are not. You know you don't need to prove anything. You know that what is meant for you will come without forcing it. You know that what doesn't flow is not a challenge to conquer, but a sign that it's not your path. And when you reach this point, you realize something surprising. You no longer have any interest in going back. Because at the end of the day, everything comes down to one choice: to keep repeating patterns that only bring pain, or to dare to create an entirely new reality. You've already made your decision. Never again will you be the person who ignored their intuition. Never again will you settle for what doesn't serve you. Never again will you let anyone define your worth. Because now you understand something that will change your life forever. Self-love is not a destination, it's a journey. And now you are finally walking in the right direction. When you discover the self-love that emerges after saying, "No more," there is no turning back. What once felt like an internal battle now becomes absolute clarity. Uncertainty dissolves because you no longer need anyone to confirm your worth. You already know it. And here lies the key to everything. The world responds to the energy you project. Now that you have reconnected with yourself, now that you have learned to respect, honor, and release what no longer serves you, life begins to align with this new version of you. Because when you walk with certainty, when you have left behind the doubts and fears that once trapped you, everything authentic starts gravitating toward you. Maybe before, you struggled to understand why some people seem to move forward effortlessly while you felt stuck. But now, you know the truth. It wasn't life that was against you. It was you who was holding on to what no longer had a place in your growth. Now you see it clearly. Now you understand that what was happening to you wasn't a punishment. It was a lesson. Now you realize that every relationship, every experience, every loss had a purpose to lead you here, to this moment, where you finally recognize yourself, where you finally choose yourself, where you finally decide to live in harmony with who you truly are. And this is where true magic begins, because when you change, your environment changes. When you transform, the people who enter your life are different. When you raise your standards, the universe responds with opportunities, connections, and experiences that reflect your new level of awareness. And all of this starts with a single decision. The decision to never again accept less than what you deserve. Now that you have this clarity, I want you to do something. Don't keep this message to yourself. Share this knowledge with someone who needs it, with someone who is still trapped in the cycle you have already broken free from. Because what you've just heard is not just a reflection, it is a tool for transformation. Leave a comment below and tell me what part of this message resonated with you. I want to hear from you. I want to know what stage of this journey you are in and what you've learned from your own experience. And if this content has touched your soul, help me spread it to more people. Share this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so we can continue growing together on this path of self-discovery and transformation. Remember, every time you engage with this content, you are not only helping yourself, you are also helping others receive this message at the moment they need it most. Together, we can build a community of people who have chosen to awaken, to leave behind what no longer belongs to them, and to move forward toward the life they truly deserve. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And most of all, thank you for daring to choose yourself. See you in the next video. Remember, the change starts with you. The most successful person I ever met once told me something that altered the course of my entire existence. Carl Jung said, "Your outer appearance is a direct reflection of your inner world. And if you cannot master what you see in the mirror each morning, you will never master your destiny." Those words didn't just reach my ears. They pierced through the layers of illusion I had built around myself. In that instant, I understood that I had been living in denial, pretending that the way I presented myself to the world had no connection to the state of my soul. Most people over 40 still cling to this same comforting illusion. That appearance doesn't matter, that it's something superficial, irrelevant, or even vain. But Jung's insight reveals something far deeper. He taught that the human being is a bridge between the inner and the outer, and both must coexist in harmony. So, let me ask you something uncomfortable. When was the last time you truly looked at yourself in the mirror and felt genuine admiration for the person staring back at you? When was the last time you saw not just a face, but a force of life, a being in full command of their essence? If your answer is a long time ago or never, then this message is for you. Because this is not merely about changing how you look, it's about transforming how you perceive yourself. Jung believed that the psyche constantly seeks wholeness, and that everything external in your life is a mirror of what's happening inside you. So, if your reflection no longer inspires you, it's a sign that your inner self has been neglected. After decades studying the human psyche and observing thousands of individuals from every corner of the world, Jung discovered a universal pattern. When the outer image is aligned with the inner truth, life begins to flow in balance. When there's coherence between what you feel and what you project, your existence stops being a battlefield and becomes a symphony. It's not vanity, it's alignment. It's the science of psychological resonance. I once met a woman who embodied this imbalance perfectly. On paper, she had everything: career, stability, a loving family, but her eyes carried a quiet fatigue. During a break at one of my conferences, she approached me and confessed, "I've achieved everything I wanted, but every morning I wake up feeling defeated. When I look in the mirror, I see someone who gave up." I told her something I now tell everyone. Your appearance is not an act of vanity. It's an act of responsibility. Responsibility toward your essence, your purpose, and the energy you transmit to the world. There's a deep psychological reason behind this. Every time you look in the mirror, your brain performs an unconscious comparison. It matches the physical image it sees with the mental image you hold of yourself. When both are aligned, your mind releases dopamine and serotonin, chemicals that fill you with energy, focus, and confidence. You feel capable, alive, and connected to your potential. But when there's dissonance, when you see a version of yourself that doesn't resonate with who you believe you are, your brain interprets it as an existential threat. It releases cortisol, the hormone of stress and defeat. And from that moment on, your energy drains, your creativity drops, and your emotional clarity begins to fade. That's why on days when you feel good about how you look, everything seems easier. The day flows, people respond differently, and opportunities seem to appear effortlessly. It's not magic, it's psychology. You are operating from a state of self-approval and inner order. Jung would say that in those moments, your persona, the image you show the world, is in harmony with yourself, the deepest center of your being. Now let's make one thing clear. Caring about your appearance doesn't mean falling into narcissism. It's not about vanity or superficiality. It's about cultivating a ritual of self-respect. Think of it as an act of love toward the vessel that carries your consciousness. If you owned a masterpiece, would you let it decay? If you possessed a rare musical instrument, would you leave it untuned? Of course not. You would care for it meticulously because you understand its worth. Your body, your image, your presence, they are instruments of your destiny. Through them, your soul expresses its frequency in the material world. When you neglect them, you silence a part of your own being. Most people after 40 treat their bodies worse than they treat their possessions, forgetting that this body is the sacred temple through which life experiences itself. I remember the moment I had to face this truth myself. I was 52, my professional life thriving, traveling the world, sharing my work. But one night, my wife showed me a picture of me taken during a lecture. I looked at it and felt a strange shock. Is that really me? I saw a man who looked exhausted, drained, disconnected from his own vitality. That image became a mirror of my neglect. And that night, I made a decision. I would no longer let my reflection contradict the greatness I carried within. From that day forward, I treated my appearance as an extension of my integrity, not out of ego, but out of coherence. Because if you speak about mastery, discipline, and purpose, your image must embody those same principles. When you wake up and approach your morning routine as a ritual of empowerment instead of obligation, everything changes. Each time you shower with awareness, dress with intention, and take care of your body with respect, you are sending a message to your subconscious. I matter. I am worthy. I am prepared to lead. That woman I mentioned earlier took that philosophy to heart. Within 6 months, she was unrecognizable, not because she became someone else, but because she finally became herself. Her energy shifted. Her eyes glowed with purpose. Her professional and personal life flourished. And when I asked her what had changed, she said something unforgettable. I finally decided to look like the woman I always felt I was inside. That is the secret Jung wanted us to grasp. Your appearance is not a mask. It's a mirror. It doesn't hide who you are. It reveals who you have chosen to become. When the external begins to mirror the internal, you enter a state of psychological wholeness. That's when your energy aligns, your path becomes clear, and the universe begins to conspire with you instead of against you. So, the next time you face the mirror, don't look for flaws. Look for truth. Ask yourself, is this image in front of me aligned with the person I am becoming? If the answer is no, then it's time to begin. Not with guilt, but with reverence. Because transformation begins in the smallest rituals of awareness. The first key is what I call the mirror principle. Every morning, before stepping into the world, look into your own eyes for 30 full seconds, not to judge yourself, but to connect. Ask yourself, is this person ready for the day ahead? Does what I see reflect my values, my inner strength, my highest vision of who I am becoming? If the answer is no, then do something about it. Adjust your posture, fix your hair, change your shirt. These may seem like small actions, but in the language of the psyche, they are powerful signals. They tell your unconscious mind that you care, that you are present, and that you are ready to embody who you truly are. Carl Jung believed that how you present yourself to the world is a mirror of your inner state. The outer form follows the inner essence. The second key, then, is what I call the 10-minute investment. Each day, dedicate exactly 10 more minutes to your physical presentation. Not 5, not 15. 10. Those 10 minutes might be the most transformative investment of your day. Use them to move your body, nurture your skin, or select your clothes with deliberate intention. The goal is not vanity, it is self-respect. Consistency, not perfection, reshapes your unconscious image of self-worth. Think about how much time you waste scrolling through meaningless content, or answering trivial emails, far more than 10 minutes. Yet 10 minutes consciously devoted to yourself can alter how you feel for the next 24 hours. The third key is what I call the personal standard. Define exactly how you want to look and feel, and never let that standard fall. This is not about superficiality, but about alignment. If your standard is to always appear centered and grounded, maintain that standard even when nobody is watching, especially when nobody is watching. Because, as Jung said, your unconscious is always observing. When you honor your private standards, your self-esteem grows from within, in a way that no external praise can ever replicate. The fourth key is the 1% philosophy. Instead of chasing drastic, unsustainable transformations, improve your appearance or your energy by 1% each day. One day, it could mean experimenting with a new hairstyle. The next day, adding a small ritual of skincare or posture correction. These microscopic acts compound exponentially. Within a year, you won't just look different, you will feel reborn. The fifth and perhaps most powerful key is the multiplier effect. How you feel about yourself radiates outward. Your presence affects every person you encounter. When you walk into a room grounded, centered, and confident, people are drawn to you. They can feel your energy before you speak a single word. Jung often said that the psyche is contagious. Your inner harmony becomes a silent invitation for others to awaken theirs. When you cultivate self-respect through your appearance, you attract not only success, but connection, opportunity, and vitality. I've seen it countless times. Those who consciously embody their worth receive life with open hands. They don't chase validation, they magnetize it. This leads to an essential truth. Taking care of your appearance after 40 is not vanity, it is leadership. Each morning you step into the world presenting your best self. You give others silent permission to rise with you. Reflect for a moment on the people you most admire. How do they carry themselves? How do they move through the world? I assure you, they understand that outer expression is a reflection of inner mastery. Perhaps you think, but I'm not in my 20s anymore. My body has changed. And that's true. But maturity should not be an excuse for neglect. It should be a reason for refinement. At 40, 50, 60, your appearance can and should express wisdom, depth, and quiet confidence. You are not competing with youth. You are defining what powerful maturity looks like. When I turned 65, I made a promise to myself to become stronger, more alive, and more connected than ever before. Not to look younger, but to feel more conscious and awake. I began exercising with devotion, eating with mindfulness, and dressing with awareness. The results were far beyond physical. My creativity surged, my energy expanded, my work deepened. I was giving lectures with more presence, writing with more inspiration, and living with more gratitude than ever. Now, I want you to try something. Pause for a moment and go to the nearest mirror. Look into your own eyes and ask yourself, am I honoring the gift of this body, this life, this chance to do something extraordinary in the world? If your answer is yes, keep going. If it's no, then today, not tomorrow, not Monday, today is the perfect day to begin. Every day you delay caring for your appearance, you are postponing caring for your life. You are delaying your power, your confidence, your vibrancy. Have you ever realized that your appearance is not just the first impression you give others? It's the first impression you give yourself each morning. It is the first signal your mind receives about who you are and what you are capable of. Imagine how different your life would feel if every morning, when you saw yourself, you felt genuine pride and enthusiasm for the day ahead. That energy would flow into your conversations, your work, your relationships. This is not fantasy, it's psychology. The mind cannot distinguish between what is real and what it perceives as real. When you look good, your mind believes you are powerful, capable, and worthy of success. That belief shapes your actions, and your actions shape your destiny. Let me share a final technique that embodies this truth: the mental wardrobe. Each morning as you dress, do not just put on clothes. Put on the identity of the person you are becoming. If you seek to lead, dress as the leader within you. If you want to feel more creative, wear the colors and textures that express your inner artist. If you want confidence, choose every detail as if it were armor crafted for your spirit. Your clothing is not mere fabric, it is symbolic energy. It reminds your unconscious who you are and what you stand for. In Jungian terms, it is the ritual of individuation, the act of uniting your inner essence with your outer world. When the inner and outer self align, you no longer live by habit, you live by purpose. And from that place, everything in your life begins to reflect the beauty, discipline, and meaning that already live within you. Once, a man named Roberto came to see Carl Jung. His office was cluttered with unfinished projects. He had gained nearly 20 kilograms, and his overall appearance showed clear signs of neglect. Jung observed him carefully and said, "If you wish to rebuild your career, you must first rebuild your image. Your outer form must reflect the inner vision you hold for your future." Roberto decided to follow what Jung described as a personal rebirth ritual. For 30 days, he woke up 1 hour earlier than usual and devoted that time entirely to himself. Not to work, not to others, but to his own body and mind. He began with light exercise, then a mindful shower, followed by the intentional selection of his clothing and complete personal care. In just a month, Roberto had lost 8 kilograms, but more than that, he had closed 2 major business deals that had been stalled for months, and even entered a new romantic relationship. His improved appearance had reignited his confidence, and that confidence had reignited his entire life. This is what Jung called the reflection of the psyche in the physical world. He believed that how we present ourselves is never superficial, it is symbolic. The body becomes a mirror of the soul. It expresses our inner order or our inner chaos. When you align your outer image with your inner vision, you create psychological coherence. And coherence always attracts transformation. Now imagine if you started tomorrow to apply what you are learning here. Imagine if you decided that your physical appearance would become a living symbol of your highest self. Let me share a practical tool inspired by Jung's method of self-observation. I call it the 5-minute mirror audit. Tonight, before going to bed, stand in front of the mirror and ask yourself 5 questions. Does my current appearance reflect who I truly wish to become? What 3 things can I improve immediately? What self-care habit have I been avoiding? How would I feel if I saw someone who looked exactly like me walk into a meeting? What message am I silently sending to the world through my appearance? Be brutally honest with your answers. Jung believed that true transformation begins only when we face our own truth, without masks. Then, choose one specific action you can take tomorrow to enhance your appearance. Something small, yet intentional. It could be as simple as pressing your shirt with greater care, or as meaningful as booking an appointment with a stylist. What matters is that it's concrete and achievable, because lasting change is not built from grand gestures, but from small, consistent acts repeated over time. Let me tell you about another case. A woman named Elena, 52 years old, attended one of Jung's lectures in Madrid. She had worked in marketing for 20 years, but after a company restructuring, she lost both her job and her self-esteem. When she met Jung, she said, "I feel invisible. When I walk down the street, no one notices me. In job interviews, I feel like I project no authority." Jung replied softly, "Invisibility is not a matter of age. It is a matter of presence. And presence begins with how you show yourself to the world." Elena began with subtle changes. She straightened her posture, shoulders back, head high. She updated her wardrobe with clothes that truly fit her form. She adopted a simple yet steady exercise routine and paid attention to her hair and makeup. 6 months later, Elena not only had a better job than before, she had started her own marketing consultancy. Her physical transformation had triggered a complete inner rebirth. The lesson is profound. When you change how you appear, you change how the world perceives you. But more importantly, you change how you perceive yourself. Your appearance is your silent language, your personal symbol. Before you speak a single word, your image already communicates your self-worth, your discipline, your values, and your intentions. Ask yourself, are you communicating excellence or neglect, confidence or doubt? Does your presence say, "This person is in control of their life," or "This person has lost direction"? These are uncomfortable questions, but they are necessary. Until you confront the reality of the image you project, you cannot transform it. And perhaps you're thinking right now, this all sounds too superficial. Shouldn't people judge me by my character, not my looks? Ideally, yes. But Jung would remind us, we do not live in the ideal world. We live in the symbolic one. In the real world, people form impressions within the first 7 seconds of meeting you. In those seconds, your appearance speaks louder than your words. This is not about fairness. It's about awareness. You can either become a victim of perception or learn to use perception as a tool of empowerment. Caring for your appearance is not vanity. It is self-respect. It is a declaration of personal discipline and alignment between your inner values and your external image. Each morning that you invest time in presenting yourself with care, you are sending a message to your subconscious. I am worth it. My life matters. My dreams are valuable. When that message is repeated every day, it stops being an affirmation and becomes a belief. And that belief eventually becomes your reality. That is the alchemy of transformation that Carl Jung taught. When the inner and outer worlds meet in harmony, the self is reborn. Allow me to share another powerful tool with you, one that aligns deeply with the teachings of Carl Jung. I call it the ritual of the 3 mirrors. Every day, look into 3 different mirrors. The first mirror is literal, the physical mirror where you examine your outer appearance. The second mirror is the emotional one, where you ask yourself, how do I feel about myself today? Does my external appearance reflect my ideal emotional state? The third mirror is the aspirational mirror, where you question, does the way I present myself today bring me closer to the person I wish to become? Or does it pull me away from that vision? This practice helps you develop a multidimensional awareness of your self-image and the subtle ways it influences your destiny. Have you ever noticed how the most successful people always seem to have their appearance perfectly aligned? It's no coincidence. They've understood what Jung often suggested, that what is external is only a mirror of what lies within. Excellence in one area of life tends to expand into every other. When you cultivate the habit of excellence in your appearance, that same discipline begins to flow naturally into your work, your relationships, your health, and even your finances. It's what I call the domino effect of inner order, manifesting outward perfection. Let me be specific about what Jung might describe as a healthy attachment to your image after the age of 40. It means that every single day, without exception, you dedicate intentional time to present yourself in the best possible way, not out of vanity, but out of self-respect, not for approval, but as an act of inner alignment. It means your wardrobe should reflect who you are becoming, not who you used to be. Your exercise routine should not be punishment, but a ritual of vitality and strength. Your self-care is not an expense. It's a sacred investment in your future self. It's the understanding that your appearance is not merely aesthetic, it's symbolic. It's a psychological language that communicates your level of self-respect, consciousness, and inner harmony. Do you remember the story I told at the beginning of this message? The idea that your outer appearance reflects your inner world. Years later, I understood that this was not about superficial vanity at all. It was about personal integrity. Integrity means that every part of your life resonates in harmony. If you speak of excellence, but your image reflects neglect, there's a fracture between the inner and the outer. If you talk about discipline, but cannot discipline yourself to maintain your personal image, there's an inconsistency in your psyche. Jung taught that the true self seeks unity, a state where thought, emotion, and action are aligned. Your appearance must therefore be consistent with your values, your ambitions, and the message you wish to send to the world. Now let's explore something that can completely shift your perception, what I call the spiral effect of self-image. It can move upward or downward. The choice is yours. When you care for yourself, you feel better. When you feel better, you act better. When you act better, you produce better results. And when you achieve better results, you naturally take even better care of yourself. That is the upward spiral of consciousness, a force that accelerates your growth over time. But the opposite is also true. When you neglect yourself, you begin to feel worse. When you feel worse, your actions deteriorate. When your actions decline, your results suffer. And when your results fall, your self-neglect deepens. That is the downward spiral, a slow disconnection from your authentic self. So the question is, which spiral are you currently feeding? And more importantly, what will you do today to ensure it becomes an ascending one? Let me offer you 3 precise actions to begin your upward spiral today. Action number 1. Remove one piece of clothing from your wardrobe that no longer serves who you are becoming. It could be something that doesn't fit, that's worn out, or simply doesn't reflect your current identity. Donate it or throw it away today. This symbolic act tells your subconscious, I am releasing the past to make space for a better version of myself. Action number 2. Add 15 extra minutes to your morning routine for the next week. Not to sleep longer, but to invest in your appearance, in your presence, in the image that mirrors your evolving consciousness. This is not about perfection. It's about alignment. The visible harmony between your inner state and the person you are becoming. Use them to exercise, to choose your clothes with more awareness, to take care of your skin, to pay attention to any aspect of your appearance you may have neglected. Action number 3. Take a full-body photo of yourself today and keep it, not to criticize yourself, but as a point of reference. In 90 days, after consistently applying these principles, take another picture in the same place. The difference will surprise you. These actions might seem small, but they form the foundation upon which you will build a complete transformation. Before we end, I want to share a story. It's about a man named Jose, 58 years old, who had been a bank manager for most of his career. He came to see me because despite his experience and competence, he had been passed over for a promotion 3 consecutive times. During our conversation, Jose admitted that he had stopped caring about his appearance years ago. "At my age, it doesn't matter how I look," he said. "What matters is my work." I explained to him that this mindset was silently sabotaging his growth. Carl Jung taught that what we neglect in the outer world reflects an inner neglect. Jose's unkempt appearance was sending a subconscious message. This person has lost ambition. This person has stopped evolving. Jung would have said that Jose's outer image had become a mirror of his inner resignation. Jose decided to change. He began what I now call the senior professional protocol. He updated his wardrobe with the help of a style consultant. He began an exercise program suited to his age. He started paying attention to details he had ignored for years: his posture, his walk, even how he sat in meetings. The transformation was remarkable. Not only did he receive the long-awaited promotion, but he also became a mentor to younger executives who admired his confidence and presence. The lesson here is profound. It is never too late to decide to present your best self to the world. You are never too old to care about your appearance. You have never lost so much time that it isn't worth starting today. After 40, your appearance should communicate wisdom, experience, stability, and confidence. It should say, "This person has learned what works in life and is applying it." Write this thought down right now. My appearance is an investment in my future, not an expense in my present. Read it out loud. Feel it, because this mindset will change everything for you. Imagine how your life would be if you woke up every day feeling completely satisfied with how you look. If every time someone saw you, they instantly thought, "This person has their life in order." That's not a fantasy. It's entirely attainable. It requires decision, consistency, and the understanding that caring for your appearance is caring for your destiny. Practice it this week. Don't wait until everything is perfect. Don't wait to lose weight, to have more money, or to feel more motivated. Start where you are, with what you have, because your life is happening now. Every day you postpone. Presenting your best self is a day lost. Every morning you settle for less than your best appearance is a morning when you undervalue your potential. Your appearance is not vanity, it's strategy, it's applied psychology, it's personal leadership. It's a declaration to the world that you take your life and your goals seriously. Reflect on this for a moment. What opportunities have you missed because your appearance didn't match your competence? What relationships could have grown stronger if you had projected more confidence? What version of yourself have you been hiding behind a neglected exterior? The time to act is not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. It's now, because motivation comes after action, not before. Remember, as Carl Jung taught, the external world mirrors the internal one. You cannot embody inner excellence while neglecting your outer form. You cannot preach discipline and appear undisciplined. You cannot speak of transformation and remain unchanged in the way you present yourself. If this message has inspired you to take control of your appearance, and therefore your life, I want you to do something for me. Subscribe to this channel and activate the notification bell so you continue receiving the tools and strategies you need to reach your highest potential. But more importantly, act today. Don't let this be just another video you watched. Let it be the turning point that changes how you look, how you feel, and how you live. You are one decision away from transforming your life completely. The decision to honor your potential through your appearance. The decision to show up as your best self every day. The decision to understand that taking care of your image is not superficiality, it's responsibility. Decide now. Act today. Your future self will thank you forever. And when you look back a year from now, you'll remember this very moment as the point where you stopped underestimating yourself and began presenting to the world the extraordinary person you truly are. Your time is now.